Hi, I'm Richard Herrington from the Natural History Museum, and I'm down in Weston-super-Mare here by the sea monster, which is a fantastic installation on the beach. And we're here actually to talk about the climate emergency and what all of our responses could be to that. And this afternoon I'm having a conversation with Archie, who lives here in Weston-super-Mare, and we're going to be exploring perhaps how each of us might be able to help in that response. So over to you, Archie.
So I'm a student at a school in Weston, and I run Climate Justice Revolution, a group that in school and the community we work towards a greener future. And in school we've installed solar panels, an EV charging station with 2 parking spaces, recycling schemes, recycling bins, plastic-free restaurant we finally achieved, and we've just finished 2 eco gardens. So yeah, that's basically what I do in school, and then out in the community I help tidy up the parks, they're getting overgrown, and then just make it look nice but still keeping the climate as it is and the nature, to still let nature sort of have its path.
Right, I mean that's amazing that you're motivated to do that. You know, and from my side, I've got a research group at the Natural History Museum, and what we're seeking to do is have a look at unpicking the energy revolution that we're going through at the moment. Because I mean, you talked about EV charging and so on, and we're really aware of the fact we need to wean ourselves off the use of hydrocarbons for transport and so on. And actually the big sea monster here behind us is reminding us of, you know, we did a lot of exploration in the North Sea for oil and gas and so on, but actually the new energy revolution demands that we have new technologies like, you know, solar farms and wind turbines. And my group are actually working on sourcing the metals that make those new technologies, because we're going to have to mine a whole load of new metals. But what we don't want to do is solve a climate, you know, a CO2 emission issue and destroy our planet in the process. Yes, exactly. So, you know, one of the things that perhaps we can talk about is that how do we do that? You know, how can we juggle it? And it's great to get your perspective, Archie, on the, if you like, you're on the front line as to what people are concerned about and how do they feel they can help in all of this.
Yeah, well, in school recently, so last academic year, I had a student who was part of Climate Justice Revolution, and he wondered if and how we can sort of melt the plastics down and turn them into benches for school.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because we've got loads, but I think the idea is rather than cutting down trees and having wooden benches, we could somehow reuse the plastic that we use to make benches, like you've got the milk bottle benches. So he did loads and loads of research, but unfortunately there was a health and safety risk. Yeah, too many. So unfortunately we couldn't do it. But there's so many opportunities that people can do, but it's just, for example, with the government, you've got to make them understand that it is achievable. So, for example, the sea monster, some people are like, well, it's never going to be here, it's a waste of time, but actually it's a fantastic installation of what can be done and achieved.
Yeah, and actually it's something that was on its way to the scrap heap, wasn't it? Yeah. And it is really valuable as scrap. I mean, that's one of the great things now, is that we do recycle a lot. And when it comes to steel, you know, we're up to 70-80% of recycling, which is pretty good. And on plastics, we're only about 13 or 14%. And part of it is the problem that you identified there, that sometimes it's a bit hazardous to play with that waste. So you need specialised recycling. And it's actually quite bad. We export a lot of our plastic to get recycled.
Well, yeah, because then we don't also know if it's actually being recycled as such. Yeah. So say we sell it to India, if I'm correct.
Some of it goes.
Yeah, some of it goes to India. Yeah. So we sell it to India to be recycled, but does it actually get recycled? That's what we're unsure of.
It's a good point. It's a really good point. So actually, one of the things we are a society of a lot of waste, aren't we? I mean, what do you feel about waste? I mean, you were cleaning up parks and things, you must
Yeah.
find a lot of stuff that people throw
Yes,
away.
lots of rubbish when there's a bin in every park where I live, at
Yeah.
least one. So yeah, it was quite sort of surprising how not lazy people are, but lazy but not lazy. I don't know the best way to put it. For example, I was chatting to a lady, Debbie, from Weston-super-Mare,
Oh,
who
yeah.
does litter picking yesterday.
She calls herself the litter fairy? Or?
Yes,
Yeah,
litter
yeah,
fairy, I think it is. And she was saying that although people are putting their rubbish in the bag when they come to the beach and putting it by the bin, that doesn't stop it. It needs to be in the bin, or you just take it home.
What about this, though? Should we not just reduce waste?
Well, or that.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is how we need some sort of system to show people how to reduce their waste.
Yeah.
For example, like opening up more repair shops.
Yeah.
That'd be a good idea. So say you've got a phone, it's on its way out, so you just go and get a new phone. What do you do with the old phone? Do you just chuck it away? Do you, or what you?
I've got a drawer at home
Yes.
with a few old phones in.
A couple of phones.
Yeah, we really need to know where we can send those to, don't we?
Either hands them down, or some charities take phones to give to less fortunate people.
No, that's really good. Actually, we were talking last night. I remember you take an example at your school where I think there was a delivery and it was all sort of double wrapped, and that was tell us about that. Something where you thought there was just too much.
Yeah, so a lot of schools where they've got their kitchen, obviously they have all the food deliveries coming on like big trolleys, and it's all wrapped in cling film.
Yeah.
The whole trolley, even though all the food and boxes are all wrapped as well. And I was a bit like, why do we need this? Why can't we use the like cords that keeps it all in? Yeah. And in the end, we had a conversation with them, and I'm not quite sure because we've now got a new catering company, unfortunately. But they did stop doing it for a bit. As I was noticing, some come in, they didn't have the plastic on, which was good.
Yeah.
And they just had the clips.
So that's kind of a bit of you in action. I mean, people ask, what can we do? And those are the kind of things that can just make a simple difference.
It's just small little things. Like, for example, loads of paper, although you've got the paper recycling bins, rather than getting rid of it, you can reuse it, for example, at Halloween, making scarecrows, or even on farms making scarecrows, or shred it, and if you've got hamsters, guinea pigs, rabbits, or those other sort of small animals that need hay or straw or whatever, use it for that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that it is important that, we talk about trying to move to a circular economy.
Yes.
Can you see what the problems of that might be? Or
people get so far and then they're like, oh, what do we do now? So, for example, like I mentioned earlier, with a phone, say I get an upgrade or get handed down a phone from someone else, my old phone then gets to someone else, then gets to someone else, and then at some point it will reach the end of its life, it will no longer work, but then it can't be used again. Or what we could do is open up, like I also mentioned, repair shops, that when your phone, say, has something wrong with it, you take it in and they repair just the individual piece rather than you needing a whole new phone.
So I'm going to ask you some questions. I mean, obviously you've got a group that you work with, and what are the burning questions that your team want to ask people about, how they can help and those kind of things?
How can we stop climate change is the normal one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are some simple things. I think we can say we really do need to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide that we're producing. Yes. So that's number one. And so that...
But if you say that to someone, it's like, they'll go, well, how? Because there's not enough information out there for people to know.
Well, I mean, the big sinners in this game, if you like, are energy. So we still burn a lot of... we've stopped burning coal in the UK, but we burn a lot of gas to produce our energy. We need to stop doing that. We need to have more wind farms. We need to have more solar. People are talking about maybe nuclear power. That's quite controversial, but I know down here there's a new nuclear power station going to be built. Yeah. So that's a big discussion. I don't know what the rights and wrongs are. But then the other one is transport. But you said that your school at least have got some recharging points. I think your mum's got a...
Yeah, we've got an electric car, and that's used for pretty much all of our journeys. Our other car just stays at home unless it has to be used.
Yes, I mean, they're good things. So stopping that carbon dioxide going into the atmosphere, the big ones are transport, energy, and then there's obviously industry. We, as people, we can't really do a lot.
No, but we can influence.
We
I
can,
suppose.
we can actually sort of make sure that we look at. You can find information about industries that are producing a lot of carbon dioxide. I mean, making cement is another big one.
Yeah.
And but we use cement a lot. So, but there's
For pretty much every infrastructure we build.
Exactly. So you're absolutely right. So there. So on that, we do need to mobilise big business to change. Certainly, energy, transport we can do personally, but it's quite expensive, a brand new electric car, isn't it?
They are very expensive.
I mean, we're quite lucky. Our mums and dads can perhaps can afford a car like that. Other people aren't so lucky, but
Exactly.
but you can start using public transport more, can't you? That's the kind of things that.
Oh yeah, because I saw an article on, I think it was called the Poo Bus.
Oh right.
So I mentioned this to you yesterday.
Oh, you did, yeah.
Yes, so it was a bus. I'm not sure where it was. I think it was in England, but however, I'm not 100% sure where in the world it was. Basically, it ran on human feces.
Right. Well, if we are producing those, we can't stop doing that, can we? Utilise the gases, because obviously methane is one of the problematic gases. And even turning methane into carbon dioxide is good because it's less of a problem. Methane's really bad. Carbon dioxide is not quite so bad. But we could use that for an energy source. I mean, farms do that with
Wind and solar farms.
but they also use the poo from cows to generate gas that they can use. So there are some things like that could help. But I think one of those is to be all of us to push government to make sure that we accelerate, the networks of recharging points for electric vehicles. That'll make people buy more cars.
There is some. There's nowhere near enough for this 2030 target.
No, that's true. We need to push, and that needs government and big business to change. So, what are the other things that your friends are worried about?
So it's sort of the main things you get mentioned all the time. So it's climate change. What can we do with, a crisp packet, a plastic bottle, this, that. Like my school have also stopped selling plastic bottles in the cafeteria.
Right.
We have now every student has been given, and staff has been given a water bottle, a reusable one that they can use all the time. And there's free water, so you can just go and fill your bottle up. And then there is now flavoured water stations, so you can just put
flavoured water.
Yes.
Oh wow! So what flavours can you get?
Strawberry, and then I think mango and passion fruit, I think.
Wow, that's pretty good. We don't have that at the museum. We just got plain
yeah,
water.
They've just been brought in, so
that's good.
Very tasty.
Yeah. You were talking about cleaning up the parks and so on. Have you got anybody working on like biodiversity? Because that's another big issue.
Within Climate Justice Revolution?
Yeah.
Well, we sort of all work as a team. We try not to separate off because otherwise we all lose track of where we all are. So our most recent project, like I said, was our biodiversity gardens.
Mm-hmm.
So we started on one, and we've left it as more of a wildlife garden. So we've just literally left what is there there. There was some trees chopped down because they were overhanging and falling down anyway, and that's now been turned into bark. So we've created like a bark path, so you can go and see. And then at some point we're going to create some signs to sort of label, so we can teach younger students what lives where.
Yep. Okay.
And then our biodiversity garden that we've just finished, like a couple of months ago, we already had a ready-made pond, and it was just looking a bit derelict, to be honest. So we looked for ages and ages on social media, buying and selling sites, whatever we could, and in the end we found a load of tyres. So we thought, perfect. And then the school kindly got us a load of soil, and the bags from the soil, if you know what I mean, we used as a liner for the tyres. So they didn't, because there's something tyres have in them. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but it can be damaging to plants or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think they use sulphur to vulcanise the rubber, and that's probably not good for the plants.
No, so we use the soil bags as like liners basically for these planters we've built out of tyres.
Yeah.
And we've planted wildflowers in one corner. It's looking really lovely. And then we've got hanging almost like troughs to go on the wall that we're hoping to get some nasturtiums in, which the bees and butterflies absolutely love. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. So I mean, I think that's also part of what the museum is trying to do. We're obviously really keen to make sure people reuse and recycle stuff.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Exactly. But obviously, when we need to take new stuff, like as I was saying, we need to build these new technologies. We do need a lot of minerals for that. We need to make sure that when we do that mining, it's not going to disrupt biodiversity, or we've got an opportunity to actually do things properly and maybe have a net positive effect. And that's where we need to kind of monitor that biodiversity. But it sounds to me you're doing the same kind of thing at your school. You're creating a biodiversity, a net positive biodiversity hotspot.
Yeah, like one thing I'd not live by, but sort of run by, is if you go somewhere, you look at it, you always want to leave it nicer than it was when you arrived, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
that's quite a good maxim, isn't it? And I think if we use that on biodiversity, and nicer means probably, it does mean more diverse, doesn't it?
Yeah, more diverse.
You know, I mean, if you go bird spotting, you're happier when you see more types of bird. I think, I always find it kind of, there's something wrong when you go to a place and all you see is like one type of bird or, or one type of flower, or you think, oh, something not quite right.
Yeah.
Because, when you go to a meadow, you see lots of different flowers and lots of different birds.
Like one thing I was looking at from Natural History Museum inside earlier was how one of the mining stations, plants, whatever you want to call them, where it was, and then when it was all taken away, it was returned to pretty much exactly how it was before, which is nice to see, because normally they, like building sites, they'll just leave them and then it's just a rubble.
No, exactly. I mean, I think it's one of the things that my group are trying to do is to encourage the mining industry to think about what the landscape's going to look like when they finish the mining, because it's equally important to the mine closure is an equally important moment in time as the opening, because when you close the mine, it's then got a chance for that site to go on to be something else, and hopefully something really positive. So it's a bit like your derelict schoolyard. Now it's beautifully diverse, and you're reusing things like tyres, because tyres are really difficult to dispose of.
Like I found loads of, even in my own garden, I found loads of old, like when you buy plants from like a shop and they come in the little plastic things. Yeah. Like I've reused all of them where we've done seedlings and planted them in. Okay. Got a massive old garden storage box which we've stored all of our stuff in for Climate Justice Revolution, and it sits there, nothing wrong with it at all. No. But it's just all about just reusing stuff. Like there's a group in Weston, which Debbie mentioned yesterday, North Somerset Reduce, Reuse, Recycle. Yes, yeah. And there's so much, what at first you think, that's odd, why would anyone want that? But actually loads of people want it.
No, I mean, she was saying, wasn't she, yesterday evening when we were talking?
Jam jar lids.
Jam jar lids. Somebody wanted jam jar lids. Yeah. So it is amazing what people will reuse. But we think it's so easy to throw it away and get something new. Exactly. And I think that's the big thing that we can...
It's like recycling bins, the ones in Weston. If you go to the tip, there's normally some just on the side that people say don't need anymore. So what we normally do is if one of our bins have been broken, we normally will have a tip load to do, and we'll go to the tip, and if there's one there, we'll ask if we can take it and reuse it, and they say, yeah, no problem. So it's just, rather than it being smashed up and then put into landfill or whatever, it's being reused. So, Richard, is it alright if I ask you some questions now?
Absolutely. Fire
So,
away.
what are your top 3 tips for being more sustainable in your own home?
Well, I mean, my number one would be think about waste. And actually, it's my wife said to me, we talk about throwing things away. And she said there is no away, really, because if you think about it, you've got to find a place for it. And you don't want to put it in a landfill or...
No.
So, yeah, that's the top tip would be, let's try and cut down waste. And that spills into when you go shopping, buying vegetables or so on, don't buy them wrapped up. And
Yeah, buy them from the loose.
yeah,
Loose
and you can, most of these supermarkets, weigh them and then just put them straight in your shopping bag. So yeah, trying to avoid waste is number one. The second one I did actually when my boys are both grown and left home, but we put a timer on the shower. So
My sister needs one of them.
for using hot water. It's quite a good, just cutting the amount of water you use at home is quite hard. And then the other one is, walk, use a bike, public transport. So I know actually it means that the cars stay on the drive a lot more. Yeah, but
It's them not moving.
it's good for you to walk and use your bike or public transport.
Yeah. I use my bike all the time. I've got 2.
Yeah.
For sort of one for off-road and one for on-road.
Yeah.
And I love them. Couldn't go without them.
Yeah. So I mean, they're the kind of things I would say would be, but then also find out about your own life. Do a little bit of an audit on your own life.
Yeah.
So what I mean like the things you use at home.
What do you use and what do you buy?
What you
that
buy.
aren't necessary.
That's right.
What can you grow at home?
Yeah. Are there things that you buy that you think, well, actually, I could grow them at home, or how many pairs of shoes have you got, or that, and it's quite telling if you write down a list of all of those things and then work out what's in them. You can work out what your
What you actually need.
your footprint is. It'd be quite nice to do that, wouldn't it, across your class?
Yeah.
And,
Well, we did do one, but we try and do one every other year. We're due I think we've planned our next one for November time to do our next one.
And then maybe find out about how other people are getting around this, because what we're doing in Britain's is quite good, but other countries are doing other initiatives as well, and comparing. It's good to learn from other people's practices.
Yeah. Well, now linking on from that question, what do you do at home to be more sustainable for your future?
Yeah, what do I do? Well, actually, it's happening at the moment. I've left my wife at home. We're having solar panels fitted. We're having a heat pump installed, and this was all supposed to happen over 18 months, and it was going to be all scaled up, different times. But it's all happening in 1 week. So it's but yes, so we kind of did the sums and recognised that now for solar panels, the payback period is 3 years for investing in it. When I first looked into this, it was like 10 years. You pay your money and it's worth, you get the money back in 10 years. But it's now down to like 2 years. So in actual fact, that's something that we've done. And then our gas boiler was on the blink, so I looked into putting a heat pump in, and you can get government grant to help with that. So we're doing that. So that's one into doing quite a lot of.
Yeah. Well, like you're saying, government grants, they are becoming very vital at the minute with all the stuff the government are doing. However, they're not doing enough. They need to understand how important this actually is, this climate crisis. Give us more funding towards opening repair shops, and mostly like in education, having the education and also the facilities to teach people how to recycle properly, how to do this, how to do that.
No, you're right, and I think also it's creating resources at different levels, because last night when we had the discussion, there was a teacher who was teaching children who were like sort of six and up.
Yeah, there was.
He was asking for are there resources out there for me to be able to teach children of that age? Because they are very knowledgeable, actually, when they get information. I mean, Debbie last night was talking about this.
Yeah,
she went into a school, and this little boy came up to her and said, "Are you here to tell us how you're going to solve climate change?"
Yeah, are you like the climate changer or something?
It was brilliant, and so I think we need to be able to provide that for younger people.
It's trying to actually get it into the education system as well.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you've got, like, I'm part of the after school club side of things and teaching students that way, but it needs to actually be in the mainstream education, not what some call P6 or after school clubs.
Yes. No, I think it is. It's so important that this, it's a planetary emergency, let's face it, with climate and biodiversity impacts. We need everybody to be up to speed, and we should be starting right from early days in schools. And completely agree with you. And we need to make sure that that's put into the school syllabus.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It just needs to get put in, and then once it's been inputted, then we can expand on it. But another question is, what is the difference between climate and weather?
No, that's a good point. Well, weather's what happens kind of on a daily basis. And actually, climate is the big controller of weather systems. So, weather is often dependent on the interface between winds and currents and so on. But the climate's the thing that's controlling the bigger parameters, like the ambient temperature, the major sea currents and so on. So yeah, weather's something that happens on a daily, weekly basis, which is really difficult to predict. So that's why when you have a really bad storm, you think, oh, well, that's climate change. Actually, it's weather.
It's weather.
But when you start to see a pattern,
then it's the climate change.
Then you think, oh, crikey, it's happening so often.
It's like those storms we had back in, I think it was February time. Down. I know it's definitely down in Weston, but I'm pretty sure it was all over England at least.
It was. I mean, we get it less in the east of the country. Because we had the super hot days. I don't know, what was it like for you?
We had some really, really hot days. But I remember I went to London about 2-3 years ago. It was just after sort of the first COVID break.
Right.
And it was 40 degrees, and I was like, it's too hot.
Yes, yeah.
It was way too hot for me, because it's just because we're not used to it. Like, we moan when it's hot, we moan when it's cold, and we moan when it's just normal.
Yeah.
It's just that adjusting.
It is, but I think what we definitely are seeing, that there is this change that is beginning then to impact on our weather. So our weather systems are being changed because of the climate change, and we are seeing that elevated temperatures year on year now.
Yeah, like less snow down here. Like,
yeah, we didn't have any snow last winter.
Yeah, well, we last properly had some here. Well, I say properly, it wasn't a lot of snow, but in 2018. And then we did have literally a sprinkle of snow back in 2020, I think it was, but it was nothing, it just didn't set.
No, so these are responses to climate that are, we're going to have to adjust to some of these, because even we've set these targets of reducing that temperature rise to below 2 degrees or 1.5 degrees, but even that is accepting that there is a change, and that will, there will be a response to that. We will have slightly less predictable weather at the moment, and then we'll get used to a new unpredictability, won't we?
So, are you anxious for the future? Are you concerned for our future, or?
I am anxious, because we need to make some really tough decisions. I'm optimistic because I know when I see people like you wanting to make things better, and look, let's face it, we're part of the problem as oldies. We're the ones that cause the problem, and you're the ones that are
trying to solve the problem.
Try and solve it, and hopefully we're starting those solutions. But I'm really optimistic, because I have someone sitting opposite me who's motivated to want to do things. And actually, as a scientific institution, we are coming up with some things that we could suggest as ideas solutions. You know, we had a thing at the museum, an exhibition, Our Broken Planet, but the second part of that is ways to fix it, and that's where we should be. Is look, let's have some ways to fix it, and one of those is let's get renewable energy, cut down CO2. But there's all these other things that you've been talking about. Let's improve our local biodiversity by creating better spaces, and let's cut our use of things. So, yeah, I'm concerned, but I'm also optimistic that humans will respond.
Would you also say the government are supportive enough, or do you think they need to sort of not give us more money, but do you understand what I'm saying? Put more money into the new infrastructure that we need?
They certainly should be behind the making sure that the pressures are on to enable us to recycle more and make better choices. No government's ever perfect. I won't single this government out of being anywhere, but they do need to do more.
All governments need to do more.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they have acknowledged, they recognise, both sides actually, both Labour and Conservatives have recognised that renewable energy is really important and we need to push towards that, which I'm really pleased about. And then we just need to make sure that they legislate to really give the incentives for us all to be able to, for example, get electric vehicles, so they could probably do more to encourage us to do that. And my view is that we should be encouraging more things to be grown locally and produced locally to cut down,
like it was
the
back
miles that we ship things.
Like it was back in lockdown, support your local business.
Wasn't that good? I mean, we had to go to our corner stores, and
because our mainstream stores actually didn't have the produce or products we needed.
And we were talking about it. We got in our gardens, didn't we?
Yeah.
We planted some veggies and
start planting veggies and potatoes, whatever you can to. One, it will save you money, but two, it will not stop mainstream, but it will reduce it.
Yeah, no, exactly. So we can all cut down the amount of stuff that we have to move around the country.
Like I know Weston it's a community atmosphere, and if we all work together, we will start to not reduce climate change, but be more aware. But also we can then help each other out with, if someone's got a massive garden, they may do a sort of a community veggie sale or something, where they can come and grow, or even just in the local parks.
Yeah.
A patch of grass that gets turned into a fruit and veg garden, and people can just go and help themselves.
No, it's absolutely right. The museum's in London, and we've got an initiative there, our Urban Nature Project, where we're using part of it's our gardens basically, to start to show people what can be done with regard to improving biodiversity, even in an urban setting. Because it's amazing what you can do in your own garden to encourage more diversity, pollinating insects, because obviously they're under threat. Looking after our bees, really important, but there are a whole range of other insects that are beneficial that we should be looking after. So, yeah, good.
Yeah. So one of the other things that I sort of always think about every day is, if you see someone sort of put say a non-reusable plastic bottle just in the bin, would you go up to them or go and get it out the bin and put it in the recycling? Or would you say someone was going to go and get rid of something, for example, an old piece of furniture like someone mentioned yesterday in the panel discussion, would you sort of maybe potentially take it home or take it elsewhere where it can be reused rather than going to the bin?
Yeah, I mean, I do remind people who are throwing plastic bottles away that they actually should be putting those into recycling. I think also I see a lot of people buying bottled water.
Yes.
I actually have quite a problem with that, with people.
It comes out the tap for a reason.
Absolutely, and actually bottled water being shipped around the world. So It's been a great conversation, Archie, and I think we've explored quite, a lot of really interesting ground here. And what's been great for me is that, we sit in the Natural History Museum and we're doing our stuff in the basement, and we're coming up with things we think are going to be useful for people. And it's great to come out to the community like yourself and find out what individuals are doing for themselves. So that's been a real pleasure. But I just wondered, we've sort of had this conversation and you've asked some questions. And I wonder, are there some things that you might take away from?
Yeah, definitely. Make people more aware of how, yes, we've got a lot to change. However, it's not a slow process of doing it, but we need to be careful of the steps that we do take. Because if we take one step forward, and it's the wrong step forward, it could put us 2 steps back. So it's just that balancing out of taking time to do it. However, by the end, as long as we take baby steps almost, we will end up with a good outcome.
That's a really good point. And I think doing baby steps at least means you can do something where you see a benefit. If you're too ambitious at the start, it can be quite disappointing, can't it? I mean, we've all done that where we've set our sights too high, perhaps. So, that's good. So, what sort of things are you going to take back to talk to your group about?
So, I'll talk to them like I was talking to you yesterday and earlier today about the minerals.
Yes.
And how, yes, electric cars are all great in that. However, it's trying to get the minerals to make the batteries. Like, I didn't actually realise, which I found out today from one of your colleagues, is that electric car battery weighs about a ton.
Yeah. Which
was quite shocking, to be honest. I didn't think they weighed that much.
That's why electric cars are heavier than and so yeah, it's there's some amazing facts actually. But so that's part of what we're trying to do is to enable you guys to assimilate that and make some better decisions. So no, it's been really great, and I've very much enjoyed our conversation. And all I can say is you're doing great stuff, and I hope you can be a role model to others who will get involved, because it really is by people like you getting involved, the next generation. That's why I'm you asked me that question. Am I anxious? Yes, but I'm also optimistic because there's some good people trying to make good things happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks a lot for the conversation, Archie. And
thank you too.
And say hi to everybody else in Weston, and hope the museum comes back sometime soon to see how you've been getting on.